You know Stephen Colbert is the quick-witted comedian,
Yeah.
right? The late-night host. But what if we told you she's also a really shrewd financial strategist worth an estimated $75 million, who, well, quite literally turned finance into a weapon? Today, we're taking a deep dive into the mind of Stephen Colbert, not just the entertainer, but the strategist who, you could argue, taught millions more about finance than a lot of economists. He didn't wear a suit. He wasn't pitching stocks, yet he somehow transformed entertainment into this powerful form of education and financial satire into, well, sharp social power.
It's truly astonishing, isn't it? Not just the sheer scale of what he's earned, but how he earned it.
Exactly.
I mean, in an age where truth often feels like it's whispering, Colbert used the loudest tool he had, humor, to reveal what others were desperately trying to hide about money, power, and the often invisible hands pulling the strings. This isn't just a career story. It's really a masterclass in how ideas can compound, just like money. So our mission today, really, is to unpack the surprising, insightful ways he built influence and wealth pretty much by making us laugh.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Stephen Colbert, he never set out to be a finance expert. He didn't have an economics degree.
Right.
And yet, from 2005 to 2014, the Colbert Report made these incredibly complex financial topics digestible and, maybe more importantly, memorable for millions. What was his secret sauce there? How did he do it?
Well, his brilliance genuinely lay in his disguise. He played this character, the well-intentioned but poorly informed conservative pundit.
Like the persona.
That persona was his genius. It let him ask these seemingly naive questions, exaggerate opinions, push financial logic to absolutely absurd extremes. And in doing that, he exposed just how absurd some parts of real-world finance actually are.
Think about it. Bears and Balls, his parody of Mad Money, where he'd be hitting oversized red buttons screaming things like, buy, sell, bees.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Or, remember when he introduced that fictional investment firm, advising everyone to put all your money into helium because it's going up? Sounds utterly silly, right?
It does, totally. But I mean, when you consider that at the exact same time, subprime mortgages, these incredibly risky loans, were being packaged up and sold as supposedly safe AAA-rated assets,
Right.
Was helium really that much more ridiculous?
That's a good point.
The genius here wasn't just the jokes themselves, it was the underlying structure. He used comedy as an access point to financial literacy. He embedded real economic concepts like derivatives, these complex financial contracts, campaign financing, tax loopholes, inflation, all into sketches without ever sounding like he was lecturing.
Like a teacher. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is what we call the immersive irony model. You wrap profound truth in entertainment so the lesson sticks, partly because it bypasses our usual cognitive defenses.
And it actually worked. I remember seeing studies from the Annenberg Public Policy Center. They found that regular viewers of the Colbert Report scored higher on political and financial literacy tests than people who watch traditional news.
Yeah.
It's almost like he cracked some kind of code for making these intimidating topics, well, accessible.
He absolutely did. The financial world is so often cloaked in jargon. Think about terms like quantitative easing, which really just means a central bank buying lots of government bonds to lower interest rates and pump money into the system. But Colbert just broke through that wall using laughter. He wasn't telling people what to think. He was inviting them to think differently, to see that these financial systems are often driven not by pure logic, but by political, personal, institutional interests.
Right.
And that realization, it's incredibly liberating. It empowers you, the viewer, to ask harder questions, demand transparency, and stop feeling so intimidated by the headlines.
It's fascinating how that whole financial mindset, that willingness to question money, poke at it, roast it, actually set him up for a different kind of success too. Because Colbert isn't just about the performance. He's become this master builder of long-term assets.
Exactly right. Stephen Colbert doesn't just perform, he builds. While, a lot of comedians are maybe chasing the next gig, Colbert plays a longer, deeper game. He transforms visibility into ownership, content into capital.
Right.
And this reveals a model of wealth building that goes way beyond just the stage.
Let's talk numbers for a second, just to anchor this. During the Colbert Report, say 2005 to 2014, he earned an estimated, $6 million annually?
Yeah, around that.
Comfortable, sure, but like you said, maybe just a foundation. Then when he took over The Late Show from David Letterman in 2015, his base salary reportedly jumped to $15 million a year.
Big jump.
So the earnings are significant, definitely. But his real asset wasn't just his face on TV, was it? What was the true game changer in his wealth strategy?
Absolutely not just the FaceTime. The real game changer was his creative control behind the scenes. Through really smart strategic negotiation, he secured executive producer status.
Okay.
Now, this wasn't just a title. It meant a share in the show's long-term syndication revenue, streaming deals, digital content licensing, and crucially, even the rights to the show's format and branding.
Wow.
He effectively moved from being, well, an employee to becoming an owner. This is what we call the leverage layer principle. It's this mindset where your creative work does double duty. It earns you money now, but it's also building durable intellectual property that keeps generating income even when you're not actively working on it. Like, think of a musician owning the rights to their songs, not just getting paid for a concert.
Right, right. And he scaled that ownership mentality beyond just television, too. Co-founding Spartan Race Productions, partnering with Showtime for specials, launching a book imprint.
Exactly.
It's not just renting out his talent. He's equity partnering his creativity. It's a different level.
Precisely. And then there's real estate. Public records show he owns multiple homes, including that estate in Montclair, New Jersey, worth over $3.2 million.
Okay.
Now, this isn't just about luxury living. It's about stability, diversifying his portfolio, turning that episodic entertainment revenue into lasting, tangible wealth. In short, Colbert consistently thinks and acts from an asset-to-asset perspective.
It really seems like the deepest insight into his asset building isn't just about the IP, the intellectual property. It's about what you might call relational equity.
Ah, interesting.
He understood that an audience's trust, earned through authenticity, acts like compound interest for everything else he does, turning viewers into loyal patrons, book buyers, brand advocates.
That's a great way to put it.
And that kind of strategic thinking, that willingness to turn absurdity into action, it really shines in his whole super PAC strategy, doesn't it?
It really, really does. That whole endeavor, it started as a joke, right? Then it became this kind of movement. And by the time it wrapped up, Stephen Colbert had done something truly extraordinary. He made millions understand campaign finance just by playing the system live on television.
Go back in 2011, he launches his own super PAC on the Colbert Report. The goal was to expose the, absurd ease with which money can influence politics, especially after the Citizens United ruling.
Right, which opened the floodgates.
Exactly. And he didn't just talk about loopholes, he used them totally legally. He filed the paperwork, he brought his lawyer, Trevor Potter, right onto the show to explain every step, and raised over $1.02 million.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
And he spent that money hilariously, but also strategically. These bizarre ads like Myth the Ripper, billboards, viewers were laughing, politicians were definitely flinching.
Yeah.
But underneath all that comedy was this masterclass in behavioral finance and legal literacy.
Yeah.
He demonstrated the mechanics of super PACs through satire, embedding the learning inside emotional engagement. He didn't lecture. He made people feel the impact of dark money through humor and participation. That's why those academic studies, again from Annenberg, found viewers understood campaign finance law better than people relying on traditional news.
It's amazing. And maybe the most brilliant behavioral move came when he decided to shut the whole thing down after the election. What was the impact of that final step?
Indeed. That was crucial. After the election, he returned all the remaining funds, but not to the donors. He gave it all to charity.
Wow.
He dismantled the structure with the exact same transparency he'd built it with, leaving this trail of publicly available documents and just pure educational comedy gold. He proved you don't have to be a politician to shape public understanding of power. You just have to understand how people think, how they pay attention, and critically, how they remember things.
Yeah.
It's just a profound demonstration of precision. Make people laugh, teach while they're laughing, then show them the system they're inside so they can actually question it.
That willingness, that precision, it speaks to something deeper in Colbert, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That ability to integrate this profound understanding of human behavior into his work.
Definitely.
I mean, he isn't just funny, he's also deeply, profoundly resilient. Behind the bright lights, there's a man who endured just immense personal loss. When he was only 10, his father and 2 older brothers were killed in a plane crash.
Yeah.
That's a level of pain most of us, thankfully, can't comprehend, and it clearly shaped his whole outlook.
He once said something really powerful. I learned to love the thing that I most wish had not happened.
Wow.
That sentence, it reveals so much about his core philosophy. It's a way of seeing the world that acknowledges pain, holds space for absurdity, and still somehow finds a reason to carry on with hope. And this unique lens informs everything he does, especially his humor.
That's a great point. Unlike some comedians who maybe use jokes to deflect or escape pain, Colbert seems to use humor to engage with it, to pull us into a deeper conversation about what it means to live in a broken world and still search for meaning. How does that emotional duality play into his success?
Well, this emotional duality is absolutely central to him. We actually call it the sacred paradox principle.
Okay.
It's the ability to hold light and darkness at the same time and use both as creative fuel. Think about his transition, right? From the exaggerated Colbert Report character to hosting The Late Show as essentially himself.
Yeah, that was a big shift.
Huge. He brought his deep faith, his profound grief, and his joy right into the mainstream. He turned late-night TV, often a pretty superficial space, into a place of remarkable emotional honesty.
I remember those interviews, like with Anderson Cooper about grief. They were powerful.
Exactly, holding space for guest pain. And there were monologues where he addressed national tragedies, not with easy punchlines, but with genuine poetry. He famously said, "You can't laugh and be afraid at the same time." That's not just a clever line. It feels like a worldview.
So his comedy resonates so deeply because it's anchored in truth. Truth about suffering, about absurdity, about resilience. This life philosophy turns tragedy into, like, texture.
Yeah.
Something woven into the storytelling.
Yeah, texture, that's a good word.
Giving his work this kind of emotional compound interest. And this approach, it allows him to really shape narratives through satire, doesn't it?
Indeed. In today's world, influence doesn't just belong to titles or even just inherited wealth. It fundamentally belongs to the storyteller.
Right.
And Stephen Colbert, with his sharp suit and even sharper tongue, has become one of the most quietly powerful narrators in modern American culture.
And his power doesn't come from, say, overt campaigning or traditional political moves, does it? It's something else.
No, it's far more subtle
well.
and potent. It comes from framing. Through satire, he reorients the way you see things, the way you think, the way you question. He doesn't tell you what to believe, necessarily. He shows you why belief itself is often a slippery, constructed thing. And he does it night after night on The Late Show, consistently pulling in over 2.5 million viewers, even while traditional TV viewership is, declining.
Consistency is key.
It's influenced by design. Every night, millions of people hear Colbert's voice, often as their last perspective on politics, business, society before they go to sleep. That's serious cultural imprinting.
Yeah.
Consider his coverage of, say, tax avoidance by billionaires. Instead of just listing dry facts, he introduces Cashy, this sassy anthropomorphic dollar bill who explains loopholes with humor and, frankly, theory.
I remember Cassie.
Right. The result is you don't just hear the numbers, you feel the injustice. This is what we call the narrative gravity effect. It's when a creator becomes so emotionally resonant and so consistently relevant that their framing actually starts to shape public opinion more powerfully than headlines or raw statistics.
And his framing isn't neutral, is it?
Yeah.
It feels overtly moral. He uses satire to amplify values like fairness, accountability, transparency. His critiques seem rooted in these deeper questions. Who benefits from this system? Who gets left behind? What are we all pretending not to see?
That kind of influence is rare. It doesn't scream. It sort of seeps into the cultural consciousness. And he clearly understands the responsibility that comes with it. It's why his writing room is known for being diverse, why he actively gives platforms to underrepresented voices.
Yeah.
Politicians tend to respect him because he punches with precision. He goes after ideas and systems, not just individuals, usually. When Donald Trump rose to power, his monologues became this kind of cultural lifeline for many people.
Definitely felt that way.
Organizing thought, helping people feel less alone in their confusion. This is power. Not the power to dictate, but the power to help others make sense of a world that often feels senseless. And that influence, it compounds over time. It becomes part of how a generation interprets events. He reminds us, you don't need to hold office to shape a nation's consciousness. You just need clarity, consistency, and crucially, a voice people trust.
And speaking of clarity and trust in, turbulent times, it's really remarkable how he became this kind of pillar during moments of intense crisis.
Yeah.
In recent years, something surprising has happened, hasn't it? More and more people seem to be looking to comedians, not just for distraction, but almost for direction.
It's true.
And Stephen Colbert really stood out by offering something maybe rarer, clarity mixed with compassion.
Absolutely. Let's just rewind to March 2020. The world was spiraling into lockdown. The Late Show studio had to shut down like everything else.
Right.
But Colbert did something extraordinary. He kept going from his own home, no audience, sometimes wearing slippers. I think he even filmed in his bathtub once.
He did.
For over 200 episodes, he brought The Late Show into people's living rooms, not just as a performance, but as this consistent, almost comforting presence. Viewers weren't just tuning in for laughs anymore. They were tuning in for, like, emotional regulation. He sort of played this comedic first responder.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. While the world unraveled, he offered structure. While anxiety soared, he cracked the tension. And while all this disinformation was spreading, he kept facts grounded in story. This wasn't accidental, was it? It felt like the payoff for a very long game he'd been playing all along.
Precisely. You could say he'd spent years implicitly preparing, not for a pandemic specifically, obviously, but for moments of public psychological collapse. He'd already built that foundation of trust and consistency.
Right.
That's why he didn't just survive 2020. His audience loyalty actually deepened, his influence expanded. This is the crisis leverage cycle. Those who show up with real purpose and consistency during uncertainty often emerge as anchors of influence because they've already built that bedrock of trust beforehand.
His comedy even evolved during that time, didn't it? Weaving in this real-time financial commentary on stimulus packages, insider trading, all wrapped in satire, but rooted in truth. He became one of the few figures on TV who could just say, "This is absurd," and make millions nod their heads in reflection, not just, laugh it off.
His influence is profoundly anti-fragile. While other media figures rose and fell, Colbert built this relationship with his audience that endures because it's built on trust. In his lens, his perspective. He's playing the long game beautifully, staying grounded, emotionally honest, relentlessly curious. The real takeaway, perhaps, is that in times of chaos, the ones who truly win aren't always the loudest or the richest.
Yeah.
They're the ones who help people feel less alone in their confusion and give them the tools like laughter, like critical thinking to carry on. Stephen Colbert really turned humor into a kind of compass, redefining how the long game is played. Ultimately, Stephen Colbert never really set out to build a financial empire. He set out to make people laugh.
Yeah.
But in doing so, with consistency, with integrity, with this sharp awareness, he built something far more enduring than just money. He built meaning.
Yes, absolutely. His net worth is impressive, sure, but that number feels like just a shadow of the true wealth he's actually created. He didn't just entertain, he translated complex things.
Right.
He didn't just crack jokes, he cracked open systems for us to look at. He didn't just perform, he had people process difficult times. He became this translator of the absurd, a gentle agitator, a mirror to power, and just a consistent, reassuring presence during chaos.
And that's maybe the deepest truth revealed through his story. Money is only truly powerful when it's paired with clarity. And clarity, when it's wielded with compassion, becomes pretty much unstoppable. Colbert's life is like a blueprint for a new kind of wealth measured not just in dollars, but in discernment, in dignity, in direction. He reminds us that the richest individuals aren't always the loudest ones. They're the ones who, through their craft, help others see the world differently. He turned finance into a weapon not of destruction, but of illumination.
So if you've ever laughed at a Stephen Colbert monologue and felt, even just for a moment, like the world made a tiny bit more sense, you're definitely not alone. That laughter, that sharp inhale just before the punchline lands.
Yeah.
It's often an awakening. Because maybe the richest insight of all is this. The people who help us laugh through the confusion are often the very ones helping us survive it.
That's powerful.
So here's just a gentle question for you listening. When was the last time you laughed your way into clarity, into a bit more courage, into maybe asking better questions about money or power or meaning in your own life? We genuinely love to hear your reflections, because your voice, like Colbert's, might just be the perspective someone else is waiting for.
And if you found value in today's story, well, you already carry the richest weapon of all, awareness wrapped in wonder. Thank you for diving deep with us today. And remember, keep thinking, even when you're laughing.